record now. Start stream. Update info. Let me just check on the site that it's gone live. TV. Hold on. Damn it, I hate when you go into Twitch that it immediately starts playing.
Yeah, I can't deal with Twitch. I've tried to do
when you go into
streaming so
Twitch
many
that it
times,
immediately
and
starts playing.
I hate it. I hate it
Yeah.
so much, actually.
It's really the worst. For me, it's just, this is a really simple way to have some, like, public accountability more than even visibility. Like, I firmly do not care if anyone ever reads or watches this. And in fact, in many cases, it would probably be for the best that no one ever did.
That's funny.
Because some people are just super thirsty for drama. And however, here I am for that in general. Yeah, you know, I've been around the block enough times to know that shit haunts you forever.
Yeah, I
AKA
firmly
Joe, says Tankstein. We have people in chat already, Jesus.
yeah, I'm a firm believer in like doing your best to align yourself with like a respectful life, whatever that means to people. And you know, Whisper network safety stuff aside, I really, yeah, like there's like venting to friends, and then there's like professional circles.
Sure.
And I think gaming is interesting because your friendships and your professional lives overlap so much. But even so, there's still like lines, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess now we have people in. This is properly started.
Yeah, hi.
Introduction should happen. Though I can't imagine anyone here doesn't know who you are, but who knows, maybe in the future somebody might discover this when you're
Yeah,
like
I'd
big
welcome
and
you
famous.
also to throw up.
Oh yeah,
If you have
yeah. It's just I'll DM it to you real quick.
perfect.
Twitch.tv/iHeartFargo. There you go.
Wonderful. There it is.
Alrighty. So, who are you?
Hi, my name is Jeeyon Shim. I am an outdoor educator who is currently trapped inside, like a lot of people right now, making the most of it. And I also write and design games of various stripes.
Yeah. And we'll dig into those various stripes later, I'm sure, because I have questions. You come from a very different design methodology, design philosophy than I do, but I find your work fascinating. So that is a thing that I definitely want to dig into. But you are also probably the only other. I'm like flipping through my head of who I have lined up. I think you're the only other games educator that I'm going to be interviewing.
Oh, very cool.
And we have varied. I think the programs that we work with, from my understanding of what you do, work. They're quite different, but I don't know. It seems a missed opportunity to not kind of start off with like, hey, this is my day job and it's also your day job.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fascinated to hear about your program because like I've only ever really used games in education at one company, for youth at least. Like I've definitely done games oriented education for adults, like at the Unicorn residency and other things like that. But I'm always interested to hear how people are using games for like youth education and youth enrichment. And I was really excited to hear that you're in that line of work as well.
That's the business. So yeah, well, let's start with you because you're the focus of this. But if you want, we can dig into it conversationally. But yeah, give people an overview of kind of what you do in regards to games and education.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like to joke that I work between 2.5 and 4 jobs at any given time. And my primary day job for the past, Jesus, like 6 years has been with this oh, Roland's saying very,
Hi.
yeah, he's properly awake now. Here, we're all going to get distracted. What I'm saying is not important. What's important is this boy.
When this ends up being transcribed, Roland is an adorable rat friend. Um, and you should find the video version of this so you can look at this adorable rat friend.
He's really,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I can tell the story of how I got Roland too, because it's actually pretty funny. It's sort of related to work because
okay.
it was a former coworker. But he's really, really good. I have an apple with me because I need to eat more fruit today, and because apples are one of his very favorite things, and he does this really fucking funny thing where he doesn't like the peels on fruits or vegetables. Like, he loves fruit and vegetables,
Okay.
but he will always chew around the peel and then leave this fucking raggedy ass little husk of like his conquest behind him. And it's so, oh, ow, your little claws are so sharp. I also like instinctively hold my hand up when he goes on my shoulder because his balls are just so fucking big. And I always feel self-conscious, like I have to put up a modesty panel for him, you know? Because I don't think he knows.
No self-awareness.
Yeah, but he's really good. He's chittering his teeth, which is what they do when they're happy. Say hi. Stop hiding under my hair. Say hi. You see his little star hands?
Oh, they're so cute.
Oh, his little ears. This whole show is just going to be me cooing over my animals. Hello!
This is going to be 54 more minutes of this.
I know. He was asleep for the last, like, 8 hours. Normally he's kind of up and around during the day. So it's really nice. Yeah, his face is blurry because he's chittering his teeth so hard. Huh? Rats are incredibly social creatures. They typically, people typically advise adopting them in pairs, at least, so that they always have a friend. Roland actually did have a brother when he was first taken in by his former owner, but the brother died a year ago. So it was just him. And he actually seems pretty happy just kind of with me. He also, though, constantly hassles Bartle. Did you see him just pop out of my hair? You're a little demon. Do you know that? You're like a little chaos turd. You want to go back in the basket? Yeah. Yeah, he just hops right in. Yeah, but he does hassle my cat all the time.
Okay.
There's some strong older sibling jealousy / go away feelings from Bartleby constantly, because I was really worried when I first took Roland in that Bartleby's prey drive would, like, I don't know, become a concern.
Yeah.
But no, Roland established dominance really quickly.
Okay. The
like,
rat runs the cat's life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what happened was when I was trying to, like, acculturate Bartleby to Roland's presence, and so I was like holding Bartleby and like petting him, giving him a lot of like soothing and nurturing, like positive reinforcement while Roland was on my shoulder, and he was like really sleepy and like not really paying attention. And then he saw that there was like another living creature to interact with, and just got like so fucking hype. And I had on these hoop earrings with they're bent now because of what happened with a coyote tooth strung on them. And Roland, and I was holding Bartleby like this, and Roland was on the opposite shoulder, and he saw Bartleby's face, got so fucking excited, dove toward him to say hi, actually got his face stuck through my hoop earring and tore it out of my ear. And he has a rush to get to Bartleby, and then wedged his entire little cone-shaped face right into Bartleby's ear. And I have a photo somewhere of all of this happening, like in real time. I'll send it to you after.
Please do.
It's you can see it on all our expressions, what's happening. Yeah, he's a tiny little chaos engine, and I love him very. You're very good, Roland. Except you're very bad. Very bad. What the fuck was I talking about?
Games and education.
Oh, yeah. Right. So I've only ever really done it through trackers.
Okay.
And actually right now it's actually, you know, I know that this is a really precarious like fulcrum in the timeline of like all of our industries. Like every single industry that everyone I know who's working in anything is really kind of up in the air
Yep.
right now. And so that's still true for me, even though I do have a job right now, because no one knows what's going to happen, right? But it was honestly really inspiring to see this company that for years, like over 10 years, has done outdoor hands-on education for children,
Mm-hmm.
um, where the entire point of it is to like mentor them by taking them outside and being with them outside, and then given these circumstances try to hold on to those values while doing it entirely remotely. And like we're actually succeeding. It's kind of incredible. There's like a whole roster of online classes, which is why I'm fucking dressed like this. And why I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is my work uniform today and for like the foreseeable future, because I'm teaching right now 4 different School of Magic classes through Trackers.
Okay.
We have our own like proprietary like lore and world, including the School of Magic. And this was the first week that it launched, and it went really well.
Nice.
With orientation and wand crafting. Tomorrow's going to be herbology. Wednesday is going to be mythic beasts, and then Thursday is dark arts.
Nice.
So yeah, it'll be cool.
I didn't actually realize that you were continuing operations through this.
I did not realize it until it happened, and then it's been like my whole life. My working life certainly has been consumed by this. Like my independent work has definitely gone on the back burner while I try to like focus my energy, because it's all hands on deck right now.
Sure.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really proud of my coworkers. Everyone is pitching in like at 100%, and it's honestly very inspiring.
Nice.
Yeah. It's like a nice note of like collaboration and kind of like team oriented like community mindedness of just like seeing a lot, because like it's a frustrating situation like that's completely out of our control, and things happen where I can actually see people visibly being like, this is like this is clearly something that might frustrate to like actively aggravate them, and they like just like take a breath and then they continue with like what's good for the team and what's good for the community. And that's really awesome, because that's a fucking difficult thing to do, even in the best of times. And I think like seeing that everyone is so mission oriented right now is really important for me as well.
How large an org are you?
Oh, well, when there isn't a pandemic going on, I work in the smaller branch in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Our bread and butter is definitely our summer camps, and we have, I think, around an average of 5,000 campers in the summer.
Wow.
The Portland branch last summer had 18,000.
Jesus.
Almost, yeah, like something around there, like ballpark 18,000, I think. With like 4 different headquarters, 1 main headquarter. One of the main differences is the Trackers at Portland owns land. And in California, obviously, that's a very different proposition. And also, we still are slated to launch a Denver location and a Seattle location this summer. It's just that it's up in the air whether it's going to be remote or whether it's going to be in person, depending on how things shake out. So, the last 2.5 weeks have really shown how truly adaptable we are as a team in a work community. So whatever happens will happen, and like I'm definitely fully committed until summer happens in whatever iteration. So
sure.
That's pretty exciting. And I'm actually really just grateful to be able to keep teaching right now. I really miss my students so much. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
Like I forgot how crucial the rhythm of just like interacting with kids and like teaching kids and being there in person for them every day. It like started really underpinning the touchstone of my daily routine. And I draw a lot of like, my kids really inspire me. Like I know that's like super cliche to say, but I fucking love my students. They're so hilarious and thoughtful, and learning to teach children has taught me so much about group dynamic and event facilitation, how to read a room, right? Like my very first day as a summer instructor, I was so terrified that I was so terrified that my campers would laugh at me. Like that they would just mercilessly make fun of me, and like that would just be my life for 3 months.
Was this your first like teaching position?
Group teaching.
Okay.
I'd done a lot of tutoring, like one-on-one tutoring up
Okay.
until then. But like through word of mouth, and then eventually it grew to be about like anywhere from 10 to 18 tutoring students at any given time,
Okay.
for a few years. But that was like very, in some ways it was almost like if you're a really good babysitter and like the word goes around that you're, it's like, oh, like this
Yeah.
person's a baby. Yeah, it was like that. It wasn't through an organization. And so this was very different. Learning to teach kids in groups is very different. Learning to teach a wide range of ages, because
Mm-hmm.
the youngest students I teach are 4, and the oldest are approaching high school or in high school.
Do they group? Do they segment by age, or do they all kind of put them together?
In our in-person programming, yes,
Okay.
unless a program is just getting off the ground. So for like a little while, I and my co-teacher of this program, we taught together, just the two of us, for like 2 years, 3 years,
Okay.
somewhere in between there. And the first year for a program called Micro School, which is like a forest school. It's not every day, but it's 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yes. Whoa, I see you, Roland. I know you want attention. But the first year we had, I think, like 12 students total, which
Okay.
was, our teaching ratio is fucking dreamy. It's
Yeah.
1 to 8. So each teacher ideally has no more than 8 students.
I had that when I was a special ed teacher.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to be able to give kids the individuated attention that they really deserve. And I really hope our education system gets to a point where that can become more common and accessible to anybody. Who knew? In America, I have no idea
Yeah, I
what
was like,
that
that's.
is,
I
but
mean, hey, pipe dreams exist for a reason.
pipe dreams exist for a reason. It's a high bar, not due to intention, but just infrastructure.
Sure.
So maybe that infrastructure will change in my lifetime. I would really love to see that, because being able to teach in this ratio, it just makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And that being said, like with 12 kids teaching our first, and for the Bay Area, our only academic program, um, we just wanted to have a co-teacher for safety reasons, for facilitation reasons. And so, and it ended up being like a really awesome co-teaching dynamic. And also that first year was like some Little House on the Prairie shit, because we had a just turned 7-year-old and like a 13-year-old,
Okay.
and then 10 other students in between, and it was like bonkers how on my feet I had to be all the time to accommodate all of those age ranges doing the same activity at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for that as an experience, A, because like I really enjoyed it, but B, all of our online classes have like a pretty wide age range as well.
Okay.
So it's not like, it is intense as an adjustment, going from like your class is generally speaking only going to have like 2 years of difference,
Mm-hmm.
to the School of Magic class I taught today. The orientation had a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, right? And
Okay.
like the range of development, as you know, between those ages is like
Dramatic. Yeah.
so wide, so wide. So yeah, I'm really grateful that this isn't, on top of everything else that's new. That part is not new, and I have some experience in like trying to just create an even playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as it turns out, yeah.
I find there. I'm interested how something as loose is maybe the term I want to use.
Mm-hmm.
Unstructured is probably more accurate. Works with such a range of ages, because the
Mm-hmm.
core for us is really much more structured, um, both in the like actual program layout and in terms of the specific activities. So you can accommodate a, a broader age range simply because of the built-in constraints. But like every Friday, I run uh, just a 5e game for kids, and I
Oh
will
wow.
say that like um, I can run 8 kids in 5e in person, and I
Yeah.
can run 3 comfortably online. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just how are you dealing with kind of the freeform nature of of the thing in an online setting, and what challenges has that posed? What changes has that brought on?
With children,
Yeah.
I, God, I could talk about this either for no time at all for or endlessly because I'm like still in the process of learning it, you know? But one observation I made from like today,
Mm-hmm.
for example, is that School of Magic is a little bit more, and I know this is a very loosey-goosey term. I know it means something different to everybody, but it's a little immersive compared to something like 5e.
Mm-hmm.
Like I introduce myself with my name, like, "Hi, I'm Jeeyon. I'm going to be your teacher in School of Magic, where you are actually going to learn magic." And then we talk about magic and like, you know, from a slightly like almost animistic angle, we talk about,
Sure.
you know, the true nature of things, like the human and non-human community, or the human and more than human communities,
Mm-hmm.
are like terms that we use at work a lot. Um, and they're things that we all kind of like half mean for real, if
Mm-hmm.
not more. And so I talk a lot about how magic is real and not real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because every kid, they want that anchor. They want to ask at some point, like, is this real? And you never want to destroy the illusion, but you also don't want to leave kids like insecure, right?
Sure.
Now, online with a group of like 12 children,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have like maybe a smartass 11-year-old who wants to like poke holes in everything, which
Yeah.
is like totally, yeah, that's a prerogative. Like that's squarely in the middle of where they should be, like
Mm-hmm.
developmentally. But then you also have like a 6-year-old who really wants the magic to just be real and doesn't just want it, but just intuitively believes that it's real, and also can get kind of scared sometimes that it's real
Mm-hmm.
in the same class, right? And then there's like 10 of them. So a lot of it is just having to really go with the ebb and flow of what you're seeing right in front of you
Mm-hmm.
instead of any kind of pre-planning that you brought into it at all.
Sure.
School of Magic has no system. It's just make believe, but it's make believe structured around like doing a craft with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like today we did a containment and transfiguration spell where I taught them how to fold a piece of paper to turn it into a cup. And then we like practice like pouring water into it and drinking it.
Cool.
Seeing how long it would take for the water to actually like seep through. And the answer is like it takes a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
actually. But they were just like, whoa, because it's paper. Um, and I asked them like what kind of magic they wanted to learn. And one of them was like, I want to learn invisibility. And I was like, do you know that you can basically make yourself invisible without a cloak or without a wand, but just using like dirt and charcoal? And so we're going to learn how to do like natural camouflage, and also talk about how to blend in like the city if you're a person, things
Cool.
like that. Um, so a lot of it is just like translating what they want
Mm-hmm.
into something that you can actually deliver. Now
Do you?
that's super different. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just wondering. So, when you say immersive, what I hear is like diegetic, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
you find the diegesis helps in an online setting more or less or the same as it does in person? Like, do you. One of the
I don't
main
think it's
challenges.
universal. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
One of
Sorry,
the.
you were continuing that thought though.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. One of the main challenges I've found so far, specifically with, I want to say, role play over other forms of analog play, um,
Mhm.
is attentional. Um, Kids just kind of drifting off or wanting to do their own thing at a higher pace um, when they are not co-located. And I'm wondering if diegesis kind of ameliorates some of that.
Hmm. I think to a certain extent, yeah. I can definitely see that because if there's also ways teaching kids, as you know, right, is so much about pulling what one kid wants into contributing to the group
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of paying attention to the group. Well, you wanted attention and now you want the basket. Um, but yeah, I think the more immersed in the diegesis, or like, you know, no kid is going to like care about what the word diegesis means, the make believe of
Yes.
things, right? The more you can just authentically make believe with kids, the more buy-in they're going to have, regardless of where everyone is when they start with you.
Sure.
uh, Something like 5e I can see being very rough with a large group. That being said, one of my coworkers is currently running a 5e campaign with something like 14 kids, and fucking killing it. He's doing a great
I
goddamn job.
I've seen it happen. I had a
Yeah,
I had a guy I worked with who could nail that every single week, and it was incredible. I have no idea.
Yeah. That's not really I'm not gonna lie, like I can do it, but it'll exhaust me. But my coworker is like really honestly doing an amazing job spotlighting each player, giving them a pretty egalitarian amount of time, carrying a narrative, and also embodying a bunch of very distinct and appealing NPCs
Nice.
while creating a plot that can be dropped into at any given session, but also like has continuity from session to session as well. So kids who are there for every single session, they feel like they're part of a larger story. Kids who kind of, due to schedule or interest, drop in and out, don't feel like they're missing anything. It's really well done. And like, I can do that on the fly,
Mm-hmm.
but doing it within a well-established system, and especially something as structured and like crunchy as 5e, is so impressive to me. I'm honestly blown away because I've done tech support for his classes a few times. The way that we structure it is there's someone actively performing and teaching, and then there's someone who is the main host who's like listening for reverberation and echo, or like saying like, hey, this kid has had their hand raised for, like whatever. And sitting in on his classes to do that, I've just been like blown away with how good he is at it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. So it can be done, but I'm not saying that that's like something that's intrinsic to the online form.
Sure.
Like doing it remotely does make it more challenging because there's a lot of nonverbal cues that I think it's not that I honestly can't tell if it's I actually think it's about equal picking up on like nonverbal cues because you can still see everybody, but there's a lot of stuff that happens at a slight delay
Mm-hmm.
online. And also and this is such a specific thing to hone in on, but the fact that you can't make eye contact with people really, I think,
Yep.
fucks people up, right? Like it makes everything feel like you're in the uncanny valley a little bit. Because like if I'm looking like I'm making eye contact with you by looking at the camera, I'm not looking at you at all,
No.
actually. So that connection is gone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been really challenging for facilitators and adult participants as well. I'm sure for children too. Yeah, the eye contact thing, and I realize that not everyone like connects through eye contact. I know some
Sure.
people find eye contact really intimidating or challenging for many reasons. For me, I'm someone who does tend to make a lot of eye contact, yeah, it's been like once I realized that that was one of the things going on, I was like, oh, this is why it's been like kind of rough to talk to people, and I've actually much preferred in my personal life talking to people on the phone to talking to them over video chat.
Same.
Yeah.
Or like maybe not the phone, but like I Discord chat, right? Like just something that's pure audio.
Yeah,
Um,
I wish I liked Discord. I'm trying so hard.
it's not a good platform.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You know, I find many challenges
yeah,
with it. I know there are a lot of people who really favor it. I have found it useful in certain contexts, but yeah, Discord and Zoom are both not my favorite things, and they sure are the ubiquitous way of keeping in touch right now. I feel like a real old fuddy-duddy Luddite, but I like the phone or in person.
I mean, to be
And
to be
that's kind of it.
fair, we are people who work in the analog games business in a
Right.
digital age. We kind of are
Mhm.
fuddy-duddy Luddites.
It's true. Yeah.
Like,
I've had a real crash course in Zoom recently, though, I have to say. It was kind of hilarious. Recently, I was sitting down with a group of friends, like, in not, sorry, no one's doing something really cute. I'm going to see if I can show you. I interrupt myself when I talk a lot, so I'm sorry about that.
it's okay.
You see him poking his little face out in between all of his nesting implements?
Yeah.
Oh, oh, you're so bad, but I love you so much. Yeah, I and they were trying to figure out how to rename the boxes, and I really try. It's a work in progress constantly, but I try not to like backseat blank, right? Like backseat
Mhm.
GM, backseat tech support, whatever. But it just got to a point where I was like, okay, if you make me the co-host, then I can actually rename everybody. And then since I'm the co-host, that doesn't take away your hosting privilege. And I just like ran down like everything. I'm like, there's a hand feature here. You can, like all of it. And they were like, what if you just hosted the meeting actually? And I was like, but no, I don't want to. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want actual
Yeah.
responsibility outside of my clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you how to do everything. It
Yeah,
was it was
I
a
want
very humble
you
moment.
I
Yeah.
want you to independently not suck at this, and then I get to be in the position I want. That would
I was
be
just
great.
like, maybe I should just find something else to do for 20 minutes and just butt out of things. Like that's that's kind of how it goes.
Um,
Yeah. But yeah, how have you been keeping in touch with your after school kids or um
Somewhat minimally.
mm,
Things largely froze for us, and
yeah.
it was kind of a it was a particularly weird period. We were on the cusp of signing a 10-year commercial lease, um, which is like
Yeah, that's a
still
big
ongoing, but
oh,
like construction's basically frozen in the
right.
city, and like how does any of this go? We're like putting in language specifically about like COVID into the lease, because like there are all these other contingencies that are coming up. But yeah, it's weird.
It's so weird. Everything is so weird right now. I feel
Yeah.
like um just like sometimes I vacillate really intensely between like feeling grateful for any form of like business as normal and then
Mm-hmm.
also resenting it immensely because nothing is normal or
Mm-hmm.
ever will be again. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I almost want
Really
it
weird.
to be significantly worse in the short run, to
Hmm.
cement in people's minds how not normal it will continue to be. Because I feel
Hmm.
like every time there's like a little return to normal, people hold on to that hope and like go in the wrong direction. Um, every time it's like, oh, like something might resume like normal, so then the brain starts working. It's like, oh, but then this other thing and this other thing should go back to normal. And soon enough, you're down that slippery slope of like, oh, well, maybe in like a month everything will be fine again. And I'm like, no, maybe sometime in summer of 2021 everything will be fine again. Um,
I've been reading a lot, and I know it's very different. The circumstances are very different, but I've been reading a lot about the Spanish flu pandemic of
mhm,
1918. And one of the things I'm really nervous about is this the cooped up feeling kind of getting to people. And because in the Spanish flu around the summer, basically people got really sick
mhm,
of staying home and quarantining. And as because it was working, right? It was
mhm.
working, so people weren't getting as sick. And they started going out and picnicking. Um, and it created the perfect petri dish for that autumn and winter. And
Mhm.
I think it's something like 40% more people died in the second wave than the first wave. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up, but it was an immense degree of difference. And that makes me feel really apprehensive. I'm really apprehensive about
That is
people's endurance running out.
that's
I don't,
exactly what I expect to happen.
yeah, and I don't want it to happen. And I like don't want things to be bad in the short term. Things have been very bad in the short term already
Mhm.
for my immediate circles and like every concentric circle out. Like people have lost people.
Oh
It's
yeah, no, no. I mean, my pretty much
uh,
the entirety of my family is in New York City, the epicenter of this shit right now. Like,
yeah.
pretty much all of my
Um,
friends are in New York City. Like, the people I still keep in touch with are pretty much all in New York City.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't even know. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I'm apprehensive. I hope it doesn't come to that. I think globally there will be other examples that maybe not on a federal level, but a regional level, people in the United States will be able to follow. I don't know if you
mhm,
saw the news today about the entire West Coast and then the northeastern seaboard, basically forming these like not conglomerates, but like agreeing to multi-state pacts of like
mhm.
resource sharing and ignoring federal government
I mean,
regulations.
this is basically the origin story of like Judge Dredd. Like, that's how you get Mega City 1 and Mega City 2.
God,
Um,
it's not, man. Don't get me wrong. I love Dredd, like the one Judge Dredd movie I've seen with Carl Urban,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think I watched because Carl Urban was in it.
And
And
he's incredible.
dude, that dude has so much range. The first movie of his I saw was hey, Lord of the Rings when he
Mm-hmm.
was Éomer, and that was like an incredible performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the next thing I saw with him was him as Bones in the Star Trek movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I like didn't piece together that it
It's
was
the
the
same
same
dude.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I love Carl Urban. He's a great actor. Yeah, I really hope it doesn't come to that. But also, I'm working really hard not to be prudent
Mm-hmm.
and like prepare for multiple scenarios as much as is like responsible personally and responsible to like people in my communities, but try not to pay it too much mind otherwise in the sense of like stewing in those possibilities because like right now anything is possible
Sure.
and there's enough on my plate just day to day,
Yeah.
so like am I making a garden? Yes. Like am I will send you photos. My corn sprouted overnight. I'm so excited. I have corn and squash and some beans, which all my friends who are gardeners keep telling me like you shouldn't start beans indoors. You have to plant them directly in the soil. I'm like, listen, bitches, I don't know about your like 18-acre properties, but I have a communal backyard in a downtown Oakland apartment with one 4x4 foot bed that's already crowded with lettuce. So like I'm gonna plant it whenever I fucking feel like,
Yeah.
which is when I have room, which is gonna be in like a month. So like fine. They'll probably all die, but I really hope not also because I really want beans. And wow, I really hope your viewers like gardening because I fucking love gardening, and I'm going to talk about it a lot.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my last note is like for me, I get the not wanting to over hypothesize because often all it brings is just like more anxiety and dread. Um, I guess the reason for me that it's coming up is like the shelter in place order for Texas is up today. We haven't even.
Today?
Yeah.
Wait, wait. I'm sorry. That was a big reaction, but California, and I know California was one of the first, but even so, California's was like still behind Seattle's
Mm-hmm.
and Washington's by like 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been 2.5 weeks. Yeah, 2.5 weeks for us. Wow.
We had a really
Holy
sh- we had a really short one. Two, Abbott, the governor of Texas, is super super tight with Trump, and has been pushing hard to reopen the state. Um, so for me, it's like a very immediately pressing concern because it's like, do we go back to business?
Yeah.
Do you risk? Do you risk that? Do you risk it for yourself? Do you risk it for other people?
I don't
Um,
know.
yeah, that's like
I Yeah, there's a lesson I learned from a former coworker, which these weren't her words, but the way that I like to put it is let them fuck up,
mm-hmm.
right? If you see a kid with a stick that's too short to roast their apple and they're gonna fucking try to roast an entire honking apple over the fire and like you fucking know that apple's gonna fall in the fire and they're gonna like be real sad about it and then it's gonna become your problem and it's like it doesn't actually have to be your problem first of all, and it's like yeah, let them fuck up, let them like
Mm-hmm.
mildly burn their hand and pull it back and drop the apple. They're not gonna burn their hand that badly. They can fish the apple out or not and learn to like brush off the ash and eat it or not, and that's like classic natural consequences. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how you learn to do it better next time, right? And they'll either learn to find a longer stick or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all well and good when it doesn't feel like a moral obligation to like one of the things that is the most terrifying to me about COVID is the idea that I might be asymptomatic and get someone sick in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's permanently damaging or fatal,
Mm-hmm.
or not even just in a way that's debilitating for like 3 or 4 weeks, and they like lose work or lose money or lose health in even a recoverable way that
Yeah.
nonetheless is like really traumatic. The and um, have been I didn't realize it, but I've actually like not really left my apartment until yesterday in weeks. And I went running for the first time in like weeks and weeks and weeks. And I wore a fucking mask the way that the city of Oakland has asked runners and bikers to.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks
Mm-hmm.
running with a mask. Dana Freed on Twitter was like, don't think of it as suffering. Think of it as like high altitude training, which I really appreciate that like reframing, but also I like almost fainted at least twice. It's really rough, and I at the same time would pass jogger after jogger after jogger who didn't have any kind of face
Mm-hmm.
protection at all, and were passing people like very closely, and I just didn't understand how they weren't afraid of getting people sick, like how they could be so self assured that they wouldn't get anyone sick when one of the things that's been said over and over is that people are asymptomatic.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Travels, I mean, what was the report from the CDC today? Travels up to 13 feet.
Right.
It's like, and yet I have a yard. Austin is in many ways more suburban than Oakland. Um, and like I sit outside and I smoke cigarettes and I just watch people go by with no masks in large groups, drinking outside, just hanging out. Like that's and I would say Austin has taken significantly more precautions than a bunch of other places.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and still, it's just like I don't know.
Yeah. I damn, I fucking miss cigarettes. I don't really buy my own, but I'm definitely a social smoker, and one of like my kind of not daily but like weekly rituals is to like have a smoke and a beer with friends. I fucking miss that. It's really nice. You are being so feisty. Okay. If you want to be spicy, you can be spicy. Just be up here. Do you want to see me give him an apple?
Yes.
Okay, Roland. Here. Roland. Mm-mm. I'm sorry, I'm not modesty shielding him. He's like in an
It's
awkward.
quite all right.
Oh, don't squeak. I'm sorry. You're about to get a treat though. I just need you like here. You wait here. Oh, I think he just farted. Oh my god. He's so tiny and like God, it really fills up a room. It's fucking incredible. All right. This piece is bigger than your whole fucking skull. All right. Come here, Roland. No, don't eat. Do not drink my tequila. I don't know if I mentioned look at his face. He fucking loves Apple so much.
It's like, oh my god.
Oh, do you see Bartleby sulking in the background also?
Yep.
This is my whole life now. I don't see people anymore. These are my two roommates.
Do you not have roommates?
No, no.
Oh
I live
wow. Okay, so complete isolation other than.
complete isolation. Like I see my neighbors, in the yard and stuff, but we don't like. Very, very recently, I had dinner with a neighbor because we'd both done 2 weeks of like isolating from anyone outside of the building, and that felt like so. I remember at one point he was like, "You can just like relax," and I hadn't realized that my whole body posture was like really fucking tight. We had dinner because I locked myself out of my apartment, and I was like, I had this whole ethical quandary where I was like, should I just sleep in my hall because I don't want to like go into someone's apartment and maybe contaminate it. But then I was like, it's been 2 weeks. I haven't seen anyone in person in those 2 weeks, obviously. There have been like grocery drop-offs at like the curb and stuff like that with like friends like very kindly being like, hey, I'm going to Safeway. Do you want a thing or two? But beyond that, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I think we can do dinner. And it just felt like it was such a weird like shedding of this like artifice that we've like constructed where like actually we don't see anybody. But for him it's totally different because like he lives with his wife and child, right? So it was like suddenly I was having dinner with this family unit for whom things have been pretty normal actually, in many ways for a while. And I realized that this is definitely impacting people who live alone in a completely different way than my friends who live with roommates or family or like have children and things like that. Obviously it's very different for them too, but
Sure. I mean,
yeah.
I will say there was a part of me that almost wishes I had done this alone.
Mm.
Like I am someone who desperately needs alone time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I do a lot. My pretty much every job I've ever held has been in one way or another intensely social. Um,
Yeah.
but I will disappear for large stretches of time just to fucking get my head right. And I feel like that this would have been a very good opportunity for that.
Yeah. Um, I don't really get alone time because I work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. But that being said, like that's very glib, right? I actually am getting a lot of alone time right now, and I honestly love living alone when when it's like a choice
Sure.
because I'm very social. Like I see friends almost every day before all of this in person, and I'm really lucky that I have a very like rich local community of
Mm-hmm.
friends. But I also have a lot of friends who don't live in the Bay who I still keep in touch with regularly, and I put a lot of work into maintaining those relationships. And they do too. And I'm also lucky that a lot of these friendships kind of overlap into my creative work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like when I first started getting into game design in 2017, I made a lot of like now I would say some of my closest friends actually. And it is different when you don't get a say, right? And the fact that this is now like not just a public health obligation, but what feels like a moral obligation,
Mm-hmm.
really changes the tenor of everything happening. And I have been feeling those ramifications in unexpected and expected ways. But like there are still times that I really love not having to explain to someone why I've left dishes in my sink for like 3 days running. And there are times when I love like cool, dinner tonight is like a fucking mango and beef jerky and tequila. And there are times when it's a lot more challenging,
Sure.
you know. So,
Yeah, I mean, I will say pretty much everyone I keep in touch with at this point both doesn't live in the place I live and is in some
mm,
way connected to the business. Um, and I keep in touch with those people pretty frequently. I have several chats that have gone on every single day for years. Um, but I can always put my phone in my pocket.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I can see the difference between it being forced and it being a choice.
right.
But I will
Do you
say,
remember?
as
Sorry, just really quickly. Remember the peel thing? Look at that.
wow,
Look at that
yeah,
motherfucker.
no shit.
It's like a
He
kid who won't eat the crust on his sandwiches.
just will
This,
not touch it.
this was organic for you. See, he'll tug at it, but he won't eat it.
I'll be like, not the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
I was just like, he did the thing.
So, speaking of design work,
hmm
how has this impacted what you've been doing? I mean, you had a bundle for sale
Yeah.
recently.
I contributed to a bundle called Solos and Duets
Yeah.
of solo games and two-player games. I really love, right now, I love designing two-player games. I think that's like a real sweet spot for me because I can very clearly imagine how that'll play out.
Okay.
And that being said, like the remote format is definitely offering some design challenges that I'm finding really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm hitting this weird, um, not block, but hesitation where a lot of what I've been working on for myself, not for trackers, not in collaboration with other people, like when I collaborated with Jason,
Mm-hmm.
like that feels different. Working with someone on a project feels different than doing stuff for myself right now, um, and in many ways easier to work with someone else because
Okay.
it's an active project. It's part of our interaction. It's part of our friendship often
Mm-hmm.
because often I collaborate with friends. And doing the trash games with Jason was like such a joy and just like so much fun like the whole way through. But working on my own games has been very like weird lately because I definitely have there's a good dozen games that I'm really interested in pursuing, but I keep stopping at the development stage because I'm worried that they're bleak and that right now bleakness is not what's needed, right?
Hmm.
There is a game that where one of the beginning tenets of it is human extinction,
Okay.
and it's a game where it's a two-player there a different game where a two-player game where one of the players plays a diver, um, and their diving bell gets stuck, and the game is about like the last moments of their life. Like these are not easy or like these are not games with like delight at their core.
Sure.
And so, but like, and that's not necessarily the bulk of my games anyway. Like the games that I still like the most that I've made, a lot of them are not necessarily lighthearted. Um,
Yeah, I would not think I
but
wouldn't. If I looked at your body of work, I wouldn't come up with that as an adjective to describe it overall.
I'm really
Um,
fascinated to know what adjective you would use because I feel like while I have a really specific and accurate barometer on like my facilitation work or my work
sure.
with children, it's really hard to track my own creative work for any
Stressful.
creative reason. Yeah, stressful.
That's
Stressful.
the
Also.
adjective.
Stressful?
Yeah.
Wait, why?
I
I
feel
want to
like
know.
they all. Every time I go through one, they make me feel strain.
Really?
Yeah, like even if they're not dour or sad in some way, like the mental process of them is strenuous. So maybe strenuous is more the word than
Hmm.
stressful. Um, they require a pretty high investment of myself
Hmm.
um, to really get what I like about them out of them. Um,
That's funny.
Whereas
I
like
think
there are a lot of games where I enjoy them most when I am very passively engaged in them. Like
Interesting.
I'm not someone who puts a lot of myself into like a fantasy game.
Got it.
I am a very passive consumer of those. Like I don't give a shit about my character. I generally name them something ridiculous. They are almost always a joke in some way.
Oh, you're the
Um,
Bob Bobbington player. There's always a kid in one of my groups who names their character. My very first summer teaching, I had three kids in one group who wanted to name their character Bob Bobbington,
yeah,
and I
that's
just
me.
let them. Yeah, yeah, that's you. That's awesome. Bob
Um,
Bobbington is crucial. They ended up being very important to the group in the
Totally.
campaign.
Yeah, I mean they are an active participant, but they're also kind of just like the shitpost levity of the game.
Oh yeah, no,
Um,
they are absolutely the shit post of the game. But like, you need those shit posts to like
mhm,
keep you sane.
yeah.
Like, absolutely.
And that is kind of my de facto method of engaging with a lot of games and a lot of media in general. Um, and I will say that overall, there are historically games that have required more of me are games I do not put up with for very long.
Interesting.
Um,
Hmm.
I can usually give myself a session of them and like understand what has been sought in its design, and then I don't re-engage with it. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't
It's
know.
more like reading the game rather than wanting to play the game.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I don't.
reading it as a text more
It's
than as
it's
a
something
play
to
text.
be understood and studied. It is not a thing I engage with for pleasure.
Right.
And I feel like you straddle that line
Hmm.
in a way that a lot of people like. There are a lot of designers who I'm like, I find their work conceptually interesting, and so I work through it, but I don't ever really want to like bust it out with friends. And I feel
Right.
like your stuff sits right on the line where like I'm still comfortable busting it out with friends, but also I'm taking it out in the way that like I want to do a book club. Like
Right.
it's not watching a show together. It's like engaging with a specific piece of media to collaboratively understand it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think strenuous is the adjective that I'd
That's
use.
so interesting. I
Um,
think that's the first. Yeah.
okay,
That's
what
pretty cool.
what would you go with?
My own work.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a terrible barometer for my own work. I multiple times I've introduced a game saying like this is pretty chill, and then like, people like when I first wrote Your Dead Friend,
Hmm.
um, I thought of it as like a nice game about taking a walk. And I think
I've
uh,
never I've never heard a person describe it like that.
yeah, I don't hear people talk about my games, so I have no idea what
That's
people
fair.
think of my games. And actually, that's fine with me because I feel so self-conscious talking about or thinking about my own work, and I know I need to get over it, like professionally. But I think especially because I tend to be kind of a magpie about ideas and like development,
Sure.
and often like I'll come back to something, like I'll fly back to it. But I really like creating a lot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I'm done with something, I'm like, cool, now I want to try this new thing. And that doesn't mean I won't come back to that first thing or I don't want to engage in it. Yes, I'm pushing you back in your basket. I'm so sorry. This is like when my friends hang out with me and they have a toddler and like we're trying to converse and the toddler is just like fucking up their whole life.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's fine. Your life is being fucked up. I'm not going to judge you. You do what you need to do. That's what rat ownership is like.
Well, consider the same. I look at it like a small fuzzy child that's screwing your life up right now, so
Yeah,
don't worry.
that is exactly what's happening. But yeah, I so when I first wrote Your Dead Friend, I knew it was like a little melancholy,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it was like a nice way to find a way to do some kind of like emotionally based role playing while like incorporate it was like a lot of my work, it was a way to try to engage the outdoors in a more like integrated like present way. So there's like stuff in the text about like notice what trees are actually blooming right now, what is
Mm-hmm.
growing in the cracks between the sidewalk, like do you see or hear any birds,
Mm-hmm.
is there a bird call you've never recognized before, like things like that. And when I played it with my friend Orion as part of the Deernicorn residency, it was cool because we played it at Priest Point, which is this fucking beautiful park in near Olympia. Olympia is just like classic Pacific Northwest, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like just gorgeous abundance of beauty everywhere. And there was this one little Douglas squirrel that crossed our path. Douglas squirrels are so cute. They're like really squat,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like little Beatrix Potter squirrels. They have like the big round eyes and like the little round cheeks and like the little paws and shit. I love squirrels. And it crossed our path, and I said in and out of character, I was like, "Oh shit, look at that squirrel!" And then like Orion also was very charmed by it, like in and out of character. And we ran across it again, like the same squirrel. I was like, "Look, it's the same one," and like it was so fascinating because I don't often experience bleed. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the few times I can count on like one hand when I've been like, oh, in and out of character, I was feeling this feeling, and that feeling was like delight with the natural world. So
Okay.
like that's what I thought the game would like try to foster. I have a couple friends who use this game in their hospice work, and I feel like that really exemplifies the way in which I can sometimes completely miss
Yeah.
um,
That is much more aligned with how I think of that game and how I've heard it
yeah,
used.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just
Um,
like valuable emotional role play that is used to explore something. That's why I'm almost like when you said you don't want to pursue these things because you don't think dour is what's or like that tone is what's needed right now. Um,
mhm.
I'm like, well, one, I think that's where you excel, and two, I also disagree that's not what's needed right now from like a very personal standpoint because like levity is not what I need right now.
Dude,
Um,
yeah, I'm having the hardest time. There are certain like shows that I think of as like popcorn shows.
mhm,
Like it's not comfort food in the sense that it's not necessarily nourishing, but like I like it and it'll serve,
mhm,
right? But I can't watch them right now. And shows that I previously didn't think I had the stomach for are totally. I recently finished Chernobyl,
mhm,
which is an excellent show and has some like really uncanny echoes with like kind of government
mhm,
malfeasance and like large community neglect and
mhm.
like cases of people doing the best with the information they have, but that best being very, very bad. Um, and it's harrowing,
Yeah.
right? It's I started watching it as kind of like aesthetic research for a different game that I'm working on.
Okay.
And I was like, huh. I like had this like self observation in the middle of watching where I'm like, if I'd started this a year ago, I might not have finished it.
Yeah.
But it's
Totally.
fine now. you know, like it's not really setting me in the ways that I thought. Like there's a lot of stuff that's hard to watch on it,
Sure.
but it's not like the kind of thing where I have to turn it off and change it,
Yeah.
right? Meanwhile, I can't watch Parks and Rec right now because it just feels off. I can't watch The Good Place. I
Yeah.
can't watch a lot of shows that I know delight me, but I just don't want it right now.
Hmm.
Um, and
I want to
yeah,
sit in this so that I can work through it. Like, that is the place I'm at right now. I don't want to be distracted from it. I don't want to be pulled out of it and shown, like, a thing that made me feel comfortable in normal times. Like, I will want that, I'm sure, at some point in the future, but that's not where I am right now. What I want
yeah,
right now is something that'll help me do the work my brain and body are trying to do. Anyway, um,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't want joy. I want help.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I feel like the kind of how do you think of your own work? This is just a separate tangential question. It's like I
What
was
a
about to say
question.
the type of
Um,
product you put out, and I don't think that's the right word for how you think of your own work.
Product? Oh no. I mean, art can be a product. Like I know that's like product has a lot of like kind of capitalist I don't know, connotations, just because of where we live and the
Mm-hmm.
way that it's often used. But like product is literally the fruit of what you produce, right? The vegetables I'm growing in my garden are a product of my labor. The games that we put out are the product of our work and our art.
Sure.
Um, and I think like I there's like the mission statement I started with in 2017 that I like try to remind myself of a lot, which is like trying to bridge this feeling of alienation between ourselves and the natural world. And honestly, I remember seeing a friend of mine, I think it was he tweets under Pastures Politic. And he's an incredibly land connected, very, very cool just everything, right? Like he runs a farm, he understands permaculture, he's really critical in the like critical analysis way
Mm-hmm.
of the way that American and international politics intersect with like land rights.
Okay.
Um, and one time he said something that really stuck with me, which was like, if he said something like, if I could strike from the record the way that people use the word natural in the natural world, I would do it in a heartbeat. Because that division, it creates a division by
Mm-hmm.
saying the natural world. It implies that the way that we live is not a part of the natural world, but everything is a part of the natural world, right? And you see it all the time, even if you live in a city, right? Like the weeds coming through the sidewalk. A couple months ago, Cooper's hawk took down a pigeon right in front of my apartment, and like I was like beside myself because I was looking around. No one else was really registering what was going on, and you know, like right now from my window, like behind my laptop, I can see a mourning dove and the trees that are growing in the alley and, you know, all the cultivars, like the palm trees that the city planted to like look pretty that have now gone kind of feral, things like that. Like the natural world is absolutely a part of our, you know, human centric infrastructures.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just struck that word out, then maybe there wouldn't be these like weird divisions that are put in and then the like exploitation that comes with those divisions, right? And when I started making games, initially I had no independent interest in it. It was something that I was doing for my job.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of my job is to try to foster land connection. And so I thought, like, cool, like I can write okay, and I'll make games for people to try to remember and like to remember that that the connection's always been there. Because even like the fucking most diehard game nerd that I've met, who feels like they haven't gone outside in the last like 10 years, still has childhood memories of being outside, right?
Sure.
They have childhood memories of like noticing something around them or being at the beach with their family
Mm-hmm.
or running around in the woods like unsupervised and just discovering things. And I think that there's no such thing as someone without land connection. I think that people just need to be reminded and like reminded that there's a gateway there always and they can walk through it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I started writing games. And it's developed like that. I want that to always be the core, but that's not everything anymore. Now I'm also really interested in writing games that connect people to like how they define community, how they define obligation, how they define purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I have no idea how to define my work because I have no idea what's the most helpful. And the whole time I've been writing and designing games, I've always wanted to do what's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that is right now. So, like, I have ideas, but how would I define my work? I honestly have no fucking clue because, like, everything's just, it's like upending a purse to, like, clean it out. And I don't know.
I mean, I think you used the word, right? I think in the very specific, if you were to take slivers of a 3 to 6 month period, I think you'd define it differently. But like, what's the gestalt? Helpful.
Hmm.
You use the word itself, right? Like what I see as strenuous, right? It's strenuous because the process of aid is one that requires effort. But like underpinning that, depending on like helping people connect with the natural world, helping people understand their connection to community, like the various themes that have worked their way through your work, like I think you've nailed it, right? Helpful. Your work is a seeking to be aid, in a sense. And like, can it be enjoyable? Yeah, totally. But like, yeah, like, but like,
Yeah.
I can't think of a single game that you've ever put out that like doesn't in some way revolve around like helping a person process through something beyond just the like play centric abnegation experience, right? Of just like losing yourself into vapidity of imagination. And like there are people whose games are literally just like have a good fine time playing make believe elf games.
Love those
Like,
games,
yeah,
you know?
I do too. They're great. But like I don't think that's where you've ever lived. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
Helpful. Maybe
that's
that's
really
the better
cool.
word.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. That's really nice.
Um,
Once my Dying in a Biosphere game is out, we'll see if that continues.
yeah.
It's my first. It's the first group game that I think I've ever tried to design. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Do you want to see? Do you want me? Oh, wait, we talked about this earlier. So I am having my after work drink. I like to treat myself to one drink after work because the days have been long lately. And I learned recently that apparently the way I drink tequila, like when it's straight, when it's not mixed into
Mm-hmm.
something, like completely weird. And I was like, but like frat bros taught me this. It must be mainstream, but apparently not. Do you want to learn?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what I have here is my little tin cup. Any
Mm-hmm.
cup will do. Usually it's a shot, but I like to sip it because I like tequila actually. And then I'm gonna pour that
What
out.
in particular are you drinking right now?
Oh, I don't fucking know. I asked a friend of mine to
I mean, just
to.
you can just hold it up for the camera.
This is Luna Azul.
Cool.
It's reposado, which I actually like better than the clearer one.
Okay.
My favorite tequila is mezcal,
Okay.
but it doesn't mix as well. Well, depending on what you have.
Yeah.
So I've got that. I've got citrus. A lime would be ideal, but the lemons from my garden are free. So and they're good too. They're Meyer lemons and they're so sweet. Sometimes I do this thing that's like terrible for my teeth, but I'll actually eat them like a fucking orange. They're just so good. And you can carve yourself a little wedge of that.
Okay.
And on my plate, which I guess I can hold up, I've got salt.
Okay.
And this is how I learned to drink tequila.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that you like roll back your sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
hold your wrist out, you squeeze a little of the citrus on your wrist, you sprinkle the salt on,
Mm-hmm.
and then you lick it and take the shot.
I mean,
And
I feel like the only weird part of that is putting it on your wrist.
right? Like this is a very normal thing. Citrus, salt, tequila. I did this at a bar last summer with some friends and they were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I
I
was like,
think your friends are the weird ones. Like I don't like seriously. Like
oh,
of people from everywhere from California to northern Canada. That's a not like too strange way to
okay.
consume it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You validated me in my work. You're validating me in
Yeah.
my formative drinking
I've
habits.
I've been a
Like,
heavy drinker on multiple continents. Like I this is not too far outside the norm.
cool. Well, bottoms up because it's been a long day.
Alrighty. We're shockingly at an hour 10.
Oh wow.
So
No time has passed at all.
yeah, this went super super fucking quickly. Is there anything you want to cover like in the last 5 or so minutes?
Um, I mean, this is like the problem with a good conversation on a timer, right? Is I feel like we started so many threads and I could talk to you for like 3 more hours,
We
but
can do a
uh,
second installment of this.
I would love that.
Cool.
Is there anything you'd like to cover?
Not really. I mean, I think if we do a second installment of this, I want to dive in a little more specifically into the stuff that you've worked on.
I love that. That
Mostly
would be really
because I think you are representative of a vertical slice of analog games that like isn't going to be as well represented by a lot of other people that I'm going to be talking to.
fun.
And so, like, both as someone who finds your work interesting and wants to cover like a pretty broad spectrum of what's out there, like, I do want to dig into some of the work you've done.
Very nice.
But
Yeah, I'd love that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So then we'll
Uh,
have a second installment that's much more focused on Jeeyon as game designer.
that sounds great.
Um,
Yeah, let's do it on a weekend day when I haven't come off of like a 9 hour workday.
that works for me.
Yeah, cool, cool.
All right. Well, I think we can probably wrap it there.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
Yeah. I
Well,
love talking to you, Joe. This
it
was so
was
much
an
fun.
absolute pleasure. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank
And
you.
I'm looking forward to the second one. We'll try to get that sometime in the next like week or two, probably.
It sounds perfect.
All
Yeah, yeah.
right.
We'll schedule it over whatever works for us. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hope everyone in chat enjoyed this, and look forward to the second installment. And have a good night.
Yeah. Say goodbye, Roland.
Bye,
Say
Roland.
goodbye.
Bye.
That's perfect. Good job, buddy.
Okay. All right.